the U.S. Surgeon General under the Biden administration came up with the fact that so many people in America are lonely. There was a big report, an 81-page report, how lonely Americans are. And this is so bizarre considering technology connects us all, or so we think. So my question is, what is causing the loneliness in this country? Is technology to blame? Is the lack of religion in our lives to blame? Or is it past elections where the whole country just tore each other apart and families were torn apart in what I believe was for no reason over politics? So what do you guys think? What do you think happened? And what do you think can help people? I know I've got some solutions, but I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Carrie?
Yeah, well, Masada, I think all of the above as far as the problems that you identified. I agree. All of those things are weighing why there is so much loneliness. And what's kind of ironic is that we're never more connected from a technological standpoint, but we're never more lonely than we are right now. And I think what's really sad is that especially young people, they're substituting, FaceTime in their screen. That can never substitute. And at least we're actually having we are real people having conversations. We're not avatars. We're not in social media right now. We're actually having these conversations with ourselves. But just the lack of in-person community, family. There's a book that Robert Putnam, a Harvard professor, wrote about. It's called Bowling Alone, and just the decline in what he calls social capital. And it predates even what's happening with the technology. It's been on the decline in social capital for, I would say rapidly since the 60s, when you saw the collapse of the family, a collapse of traditional values, I would say. And last week I was actually up in New York and got to do a podcast with Cardinal Dolan. As you know, Masada, he had seen an article that I'd written about Generation Z and how they're much more open right now to returning to the idea of God and faith. And there's all sorts of public policy and public health data. I cited a couple of studies. One was from the National Bureau of Economic Research, which is the feeder for the Federal Reserve, showing that there is a strong correlation between states that had high religious practice and low suicide rates, low alcoholism, low drug overdose. And it was similar results was found by the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. Similarly, they were looking at healthcare providers, actually, I think it was nurses, and they found that nurses who went to religious practice had much lower rates of, they call them deaths of despair, which is suicides, alcohol deaths, and drug overdoses. So God, I believe, is in the healing business, and that's something that the community of faith, whether it's a synagogue, in your case, Masada, or a church in my case, or mosque, whatever house of worship that you're in, it's not only that direct connection to the higher power, but it's also connecting to other people who are, we're all struggling together. And I think and I told the Cardinal, I said, the church should be a place where wounded people go. It's not a place to put up a fake facade that that everyone's fine. It's actually the hospital for the sick. That's how you should think about church. And I think that focus will help our country.
I agree. I think, but you two have summed up a lot of it. But I think really what you had a perfect storm where so many wrong things happened exactly at the right time. You had a combination of COVID, isolating people. You had a combination of social media going to the next level, fueling conspiracy theories, fueling divisiveness, all this stuff. You've had a lot of people, the social, economic, and moral decay that started in the cities, then spread to the suburbs, and has now reached rural America. And so a lot of people feel that they're losing their country, that they're not going to live as long or as well as their parents. And then I think you have a lot of people who are being left behind by the new economy, and this is something that we experienced when we went from an agrarian economy to an industrial economy. A lot of people didn't have the skill sets to compete in the new economy, and they felt left behind. And you're seeing the same thing happen as we go from an industrial economy to a digital economy. So I think all of these things are factoring in. And as Carrie says, I really think there is a huge, I guess the best way to describe it would be morality gap. And I believe that's why I always draw such a strong line between faith and religion. Because faith is your set of beliefs. It's what inspires you. It's what you go to church or your place of worship for, or what makes you spiritual. religion is the proselytizing, the cramming parochial laws down the throat of our secular society, the sclerotic Catholic Church with the pedophilia and all that stuff, and taking advantage of people. But people need a moral center. They need some inspiration. And that's what's, I think, more than anything is lacking. And so, yes, I think it is a real crisis. And interestingly enough, this, as you mentioned, this problem is worse with men than it is with women. And I think part of that is women in general tend to be happier than men to start with, but also I think there's an onus, a burden that men feel that they're supposed to be providing. They're supposed to be the trailblazers. You know, they're the ones that get affected by being left out of the economy. They're the ones who are affected most when there's a one-parent household, which, by the way, that's the number one criterion which will determine whether a kid gets out of poverty, is whether it's a one-parent or two-parent household. So you have a parental crisis as well. So a lot of this stuff has all come together, and the question is, how do we solve it? And I think encouraging people to find places of worship, things that inspire them, we're just reaching out to friends, just connecting in person, because hyperconnectivity electronically breeds uber loneliness.
So Dave, I agree with everything what you've had to say, and I look at it the same as Carrie. Also, it's faith, it's family, it's friends. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I do personally is twice a month, my 7-year-old and I, my 7-year-old son Jacob and I, we do like a tech Sabbath. So there's no phone calls, there's no technology, there's no internet, there's no TV, there's no videos, and we really hang out together and concentrate on spending time together or with friends or with his grandparents, something like that. So we're really focused on one another. And I think that really, I crave that time. And it's also a great break for me mentally to not be connected. I'm not a doctor. I'm not saving someone's life. So it's not essential that, that I need to be reached right away. And I think turning off technology teaches people that they're in charge. Their technology is not in charge. And I think that empowers them. And again, I think it's about spending time together and speaking with people. But it's a serious crisis. And even just now on the front page of the Wall Street Journal website, they talk about how many young people are dying. And I think it's something that's really serious that needs to be addressed and needs to be focused on.
No, I agree. I agree.